Hey cats, it's your midsole man, Eddbud here. Back once again with an initial review for you. A shoe that is no doubt on the tip of everybody's tongue right now, the SAUCONY KINVARA Pro. This is a 3/4 plated part P-back shoe. Try saying that double time. We got a stack of 42mm in the sample size. Another massive midsole, but does it deliver? Let's find out. Thanks for tuning in, people, for the KINVARA Pro review. This is a shoe that has been sent to me by SAUCONY for the purpose of review, but they're not vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. They're not paying me to make this video, basically, so it's all good. I got about 48mm of stack in the heel of this beast in my UK 11, US 12. The shoe features an 8mm drop, so you can do the math. And it weighs in around about 321 grams in my size, which is about 11.3 ounces. This follows the standard max cushion setup that we've seen on lots of other shoes recently. We've got about 12 centimeters in the widest point in the mid to forefoot, and about 10 centimeters in the widest point in the heel. I've got a Sure A durometer softness score here of about 22. At least in the P-backs part of the shoe, it is made up of PWRRUN PB along the top here, and then we've got PWRRRUN in the second section, though the firmness of that actually varies quite a lot throughout the midsole. We've also got a PWRRRUN Plus insole, as per some of the other SAUCONY shoes I've reviewed recently. That's a little bit firmer than the PWRRRUN PB stuff. Comes in around about 24, 25. I think we've had those in like the Ride 16, the Exodus Trail 2, even the Triumph 21 as well. They're using the same insole pretty much for all the shoes. Let's kick this review off with the upper first. So upper-wise, a really interesting setup here with a nice breathable toe box and mid-sections of the shoe. They've even implemented some suede here. It's always a good thing to see. Mainly the ankle area and around the back of the heel. Some may find this a strange inclusion, but I always like a little bit of suede on a shoe. Reminds me of the good old days of the Gazelle, maybe the Samba as well. It cannot be denied that it's a nice soft material to the touch. So from the offset, SAUCONY reckon that the KINVARA Pro is a more daily use shoe, and as such, ultimately low weight isn't really as much of a goal. I'm a sucker for some nice soft suede material, so yeah. SAUCONY know how to do it right in terms of uppers. Now, lace length here I found to be a little bit on the short side, using a runner's knot to get a good lockdown on top of that midsole base. I just didn't have an awful lot of lace left whatsoever. It was a bit fiddly to try and get a double knot tied there, so if you do use a runner's knot you may come up a bit short. I did find out to cinch the laces down quite a bit to get my foot right down clamped on top of that midsole base, and you do need it here with the rigidity of the shoe. Tongue's reasonably specced out. I don't think I'd want any less padding here. They have included this sort of overlay at the top to try and protect the foot from any undue tension. There's a quite wide heel counter as well that helps to lock the foot in place. Again, is required due to the rigidity of the KINVARA Pro. I found this shoe true to size in terms of the upper. In fact, quite generous in the toe box here. There's lots of room. Reminds me a little bit of that Triumph 21 on foot. Materials feel something like between a Speed 3, Triumph 21 and an Endorphin Pro, the version 1. It might be a little bit too roomy for some people that have a very narrow foot. I've been okay, but I think any larger it would have been a problem. You've got to get your sock game on point if that is the case. Once I've actually got the lace tension dialed in, it's been a very enjoyable shoe to use. Perhaps if you're in a very warm climate, you might find the shoe to be perhaps not quite as breathable as you need. Some people might want a little bit more padding in terms of the business end of the tongue, though I do like the fact that SAUCONY have gone with some very minimal overlays here. I'm going to give it an upper score of 2.6 out of 3 after my initial runs. Lace is just a little bit too short for me, and there's perhaps a tad too much upper. Midsole now. So midsole, we have a sandwich of different materials here, and they're quite different. Of course, your foot first comes into contact with that PWRRRUN Plus insole. You then have this PWRRRUN PB section on top of a sort of firmer and denser PWRRRUN part. Now, I believe there's a 3/4 length plate in here. It does feel as if it bypasses the heel slightly, or at least that's what I feel. It may not be the case, but it does feel a little bit softer back there. Though Though in fairness, there's no major need for stabilization in the heel. That PWRRUN takes care of that. It does give me vibes of the Boston 10 and also the Zoomfly 5 here. You do have a little bit more PWRRUN PB material here in the mid to forefoot, though some of this stuff is cupping up and around the foot here in the heel, so it's very much like that Boston shoe from Adidas. I've always found PWRRUN PB in all except the Speed 3 and the Endorphin Pro 3 to be a more dense sort of material, and that feels like what we've got here. Doesn't feel quite as soft as what I recall in the Endorphin Pro 3. Maybe they're experimenting with some different formulas there, some different setups, and the material isn't quite the same as we get in those other Saucony shoes. It does make me wonder why they haven't opted for some PWRRUN Plus here rather than PWRRUN, when you consider that the majority of the midsole here is actually made up of PWRRUN. It's a bit of an odd choice. Just made me wonder why they've chosen that much PWRRUN back here. It's quite a dense and firm ride. It does make you run in a quite particular way. Though I guess at least the shoe this time around is a lot lighter than the Boston and also the Zoomfly 5. I think it's about 30 odd grams lighter than that Zoomfly. Now there's a great deal of rigidity here in the Kinvara Pro. If that's what you like, then you'll be like a pig in mud. Certainly a more stable ride than something like the Endorphin Speed 3. As such, I feel it is a slightly controlling shoe in the way it wants you to sort of roll along. It's no doubt going to appeal to those people that want a carbon type plated shoe, but they don't want that overt squash of purely P-Bax material. Now, I'm going to state here that I've waited a little bit longer to put my review out of the Kinvara Pro. I did see a few very early reviews and people seem to be a little bit confused about what the shoe was. I have found that this shoe does in fact take time to break in. I've been using it around the house, just knocking around casually, and the actual materials have started to become a lot softer, so a lot more enjoyable in terms of the ride now after a week or so of me utilizing it. A lot of people I've seen have been buying these up and taking them out of the box and putting them on foot when they're sat on their sofa and declaring that they're too overtly firm and they're just sending them straight back. Well, I do feel some running shoes do need a little bit of break-in time. Yes, some of them are great out the box, but I do find that the ones that are superb out the box in terms of step and feel aren't quite so good 100 miles later. Some of the Adidas and Saucony models just seem to improve with time and use. So just bear that in mind next time. Don't be too hasty, people. Now, the Kinvara Pro certainly isn't in the same category as something like the Super Blast from ASICS. Much more weight here, a denser sort of ride. We haven't got the same impact protection and sort of plush feel like we get in the Nimbus 25. And there's certainly more squash and flexibility in Puma's Magnify Nitro 2. Though I have found these to be a really great shoe when you do pick up the pace. It's probably not my go-to option for very slow recovery runs. I'm talking easy and steady paces. Something round about 8 minutes 15 to 7 minutes 15 per mile pace. So that's about 5 minutes 8 seconds per kilometre through to about 4 minutes 30 per kilometre. I think people will need to test this shoe out a bit when they do pick it up to unlock its secrets, really, its true usage for them. Though I would be keen to see what the midsole would be like if they did use some PWRRUN Plus material underneath this PWRRUN PB. Making for what I guess would be similar to a Pegasus Turbo, but a max cushion version, and it would probably make the shoe a tad lighter on foot as well. So at this point for me, if you like the Triumph 21 due to its sort of squashiness, then you're probably not going to want this shoe. I think this is for people that want to do those sort of longer runs. They want a little bit more of a stable base. Perhaps they want to do some interval sections within those longer runs at a faster speed. And if you like shoes like the Zoomfly 5 or the Boston series from Adidas, you're really going to like this one. It's improved with time for me. I'm going to give it a 2.6 out of 3 for the midsole after my initial runs. I think it'll work for a very specific section of runners, people who like a little bit more of a dense cushion and perhaps bottom out those very soft foams easily. Outsole now. Now, I think the outsole really is my main worry for the Kinvara Pro. It's the inclusion of that PWRRRUN section here, which makes up the second half of the midsole, but also the outsole. And there's numerous areas to collect debris and dirt here. It is going to be one that's quite tough to clean off as well. How this foam will hold up over time is anybody's guess really, though I am starting to see a little bit of abrasion here on the lateral side of the heel, and also in these sort of midfoot ridges here. They are starting to wear down a little bit. You're gonna get that when you've got a foam like outsole. That did happen on the Mach 4 and Mach 5, and on shoes like the Beacon as well from New Balance. That is just something that will occur with that type of setup. Grip and traction really good on some rough surfaces, like some stone covered concrete. Though of course you're going to get some discoloration and it's going to get mashed up pretty quickly due to the colour. Now these larger sort of cut out lugs here and ridges I think will benefit those runners with a heavier build. It does seem to compress down a little bit more, gives you a little bit more spring in your stride, and of course adding a layer of rubber is only going to increase the weight further. Perhaps that's what one of Saucony's goals was, to try and make sure the shoe stays in a particular area. Just keeps it a little bit distinct from some of their other models as well, I suppose. These treads do collect up quite a bit of debris. It was quite hard actually to clean them off ready for this review. I did find grit and stones get a little bit caught up here, especially in this sort of void area and this channel that goes back through the heel. I did get a couple of stones penetrate into the foam here, but it doesn't seem to actually cause too much destruction like something you would have in Zoom X. Once stuff gets into Zoom X, it's really hard to get it out without a pair of pliers. I think we're going to get that sort of elephant skin style abrasion here that we've had on some Cushlon shoes back in the past, but I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the grip and traction on offer in the Kinvara Pro. It could be a bit of a bone of contention for some people, and it could stop you, I guess, from picking up the shoe. If you want traditional rubber, then you're going to have to look elsewhere. I'm going to give this one a 2.5 out of 3 for the outsole after my initial runs. Aha, look who's joined us. How you doing, Beast? We're talking value now. This one is coming in pretty hot, 200 Earth credits here in the UK. Now I can normally see where Saucony are kind of aiming their shoes. This time around I have to be honest, I'm a little bit confused about this one. As I said earlier, I think it would benefit from having some PWRRRUN Plus stuff here in the midsole, perhaps making things a little bit lighter. For all out speed, for me it's probably a little bit too much shoe. Perhaps it could work for others, but I did find it sapping the battery when I lifted up the pace and effort. Yes, it does roll, but for a beanpole-like figure, I want something that's a bit lighter in my rigid model. I have to say the quality of the shoe out the box is exceptionally good. There's no glue marks, dodgy stitching, a nice plush level of materials here. It feels like a good quality shoe. I also find there's some good structure in the toe box here as to where they've positioned some of the overlays. Perhaps not the most breathable due to those suede pieces, but it's so soft. Will it last? I don't know. The outsole, I suppose, is the main bone of contention. It may also limit the versatility of the shoe somewhat if you're running in some gritty areas with a lot of gravel. I would suggest that people are either going to want to pick this shoe up or the Triumph 21. That could be a slightly more versatile bet. The Speed 3, I suppose, if you want a nimbler shoe, but that just seems to be too unstable for a lot of people. I think perhaps if you're a heavier set runner, you want a more stable shoe, something that isn't going to bottom out in terms of the foam so quickly, then the Kinvara Pro could be spot on. If you're moving away from Nike or perhaps from that Boston model from Adidas, then the Kinvara Pro could fill that slot. I'm going to give it a 2.4 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. It's lots of cash for a max stack Kinvara shoe. I think it's probably for some people and not others. If I've totaled up the scores correctly, people, that gives us a 10.1 out of 12 for the Kinvara Pro after my initial runs. Are you interested in picking this shoe up, people? Have you already got it? Let me know your thoughts and experiences down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. Way back I can remember Apple using this band's album to launch one of their products. Do you remember the Darwin D's? Radar Detector, absolutely fantastic track. Darwin D's very much had their own style. I think a lot of the music was probably made like on a MacBook or something. Sounds very, very simple. I do recall a friend of mine, Ben Wood, I think he was actually involved with touring the band around at some stage, and he said that the guitar player used like a really small little orange amp and a Strat, and that was pretty much the sound that you heard on the album. Radar Detector's a fantastic tune, choppy guitars and some nice drum machine-esque beats. Constellations is another great tune. Some really like interesting EQ, probably enforced, I suppose, due to using the technology that they had to actually record the album, and some really cool vocals as well, little quips, little interesting lines here and there. Go and check it out, people. You may never have heard of this band. I think they've done a few other albums, but I don't think they've ever sort of broken into the mainstream again. Darwin D's with the album Darwin D's. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's review. If you haven't done so already, become a subscriber by clicking that button and giving this video a thumbs up like. It really does help out. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you. Hey people, so got some more runs in with the Kinvara Pro from SAUCONY. I have to say, this is a shoe that you need to get on foot for a little while before. I've been wandering around the house in them and they seem to have broken in a little bit. I have noticed a few people saying they feel a bit firm out the box, a bit clunky, but I'm not finding that at all now really. Really nice actually at pace. Really starts to sing, for me at least, around about 7 minutes 30 per mile. And then upwards, I think I was hitting about 7:15, something like that. So yeah, really starts to feel nice around that point. Is it a shoe that I'd want to use for a 5k or 10k? Probably not. No, it's a bit more bulky. There's a bit more weight to it. There's more midsole there than perhaps you need for that type of run. But certainly if you're doing some half marathon or marathon training, I think this could be a superb super shoe, or super trainer, whatever you want to call it. Okay.